Strigoi and Vampiri. This is internet personality Vangelus, and I've been loaned a copy of Fans Toys' Dracula, their masterpiece slot filler take on Mindwipe, one of the original Decepticon headmasters. Packed in their usual ridiculous styrofoam monstrosity of a box, this guy is meant to be a very cartoon-esque take on the character, aiming to stand alongside releases like Fans Toys Lupus, who I don't own, or whatever Fans Toys is calling their Skull Cruncher, which isn't out yet as of this recording. Google tells me his name is Chomp. And since this is how he's packaged, we'll chomp right into Dracula's robot mode. Ignoring the wings, he's clearly going for the simplicity of a cartoon model, with added physical detail that tends to come from being a physical object. Happy box boy proportions, to be sure, and the colors all speak directly to my black and magenta heart. However, who can ignore these wings, right? They're noticeably more elaborate than those of the G1 toy or any of his 80s cartoon models. Similar to Fans Project's Function X take, Dracula is a Mindwipe who not only is proud of his wings, but also exercises them regularly. I don't mind it too much, but I was kinda looking forward to seeing a minor folding puzzle to reshape them from their beast mode form into something like that thing on the back of the G1 toy. Also, jointed as they are, they still clutter his back when I try to get really creative with my poses. That chest plate sure looks tempting. Ah, well, it pops open, fulfilling the headmaster prophecy of mid-pectoral satisfaction. There are stats! They're molded and painted, as there is no engineering for a head reveal upon head-onification. That's fine. Dracula's also got a gun. It has a tab on the handle for a slot in his palm. The fit is slightly loose, but fully supported by the addition of his clenched fingers. The weapon is a lovely magenta. It's fully static and very much here by contract rather than by excitement, etc., etc. Yawn. It's a gun. Fans Toys included their usual flight stand setup for this guy, since he has wings and all. In robot mode, there's a solid undercrotch connection, and I just wish the tip of the stand arm had a second joint, because, as things are, that stand arm and Dracula's lower legs have to share a surprisingly small amount of space, and this stand is anything but invisible. Did you know Dracula's Alucard spelled backwards? Pretty lazy writing. This dude's articulation, though, involves a side-to-side neck swivel. His head can look up and down on a oddly kind of clicked forward and backward hinge. It's like one click forward or one click back. And that's the socket, like, pivoting up and down, specifically. We'll get to more head later. His shoulders got that ratchet action, and it looks fine, except that, like, the hinge to move outwards is up here. And so, when you look at where everything's situated and you start moving the shoulder, the axis is off ever so slightly in a way that probably doesn't matter, but like, once I saw it, it was hard not to see it. There's a bicep swivel. By the way, the only ratchet is that. His elbow has got a natural elbow joint that bends about 90 degrees, then an unnatural double joint that reveals a hydraulic thingy, and it allows for what you call the full curl. His hands appear to be what you call usual Fans Toys fare. There's a ball socket thumb connection and a hinge atop that, just one hinge, so you can just say, hey, I'm a vampire. And then there is a hinge at the knuckle and a hinge in the mid finger on all four fingers. There is no spread. I think that's kind of a bummer. Now that I've had spread, I kind of need it on posable hands. But, you know, it does have the one organic thing I kind of like, which is if you fully push the fingers this way, they get a little bit of a curvature that way. That is important as well. By the by, there's also a sort of butterfly joint here using part of the transformation. It's clicks into place, but also unclicks kind of easily. It's good for articulation, not so good for stability. The waist is a ratchety, swivelly thing, and his copious butt pack does not really clatter into the wings the way I thought it was about to. The wings can certainly get in the way of it, depending how you move them, but the wings have got a whole bunch of motion. They are identical, but just going back here to take a look, there's a basic flap, which does not flap back as much as I would have liked it to flap, all things considered, but it's still some flap. This one's getting a little bit loose. There's also a detented rotation in that direction, and then there is detented rotation here, and you can also flip this bit out, you can flip that bit out, you can slide this on this little slider thing in and out. These are very articulate wings that somehow still always feel like there's like one joint missing from what I want. Don't know how to explain that any better. It's just like they fold up like this, right? Or they unfurl like this, and I'm like, oh, I would love it if this could go this way, and it's like I'm fighting two axes trying to get a diagonal motion to happen that just ain't happening. For your purposes, these are probably fine. Like, they unfurl gloriously. I don't know what it is I'm looking for, and I don't know if that's my fault or theirs. The hips can kick forward on one of them. The crotch is actually the joint kind of setups, and he can kick pretty far. He's got a thigh swivel and a non-ratcheted outward motion that is like a 87% Van Damme. There is some double-jointed knee action. The bottom knee joint's not detented and moves quite easily and naturally. The top one is detented, doesn't move quite as naturally or easily, and this big hunk of lower leg sort of prevents a full yoga curl, but I'm okay with that with Mind Wipe, I suppose. His foot can pivot, or sorry, it can tilt. I also keep flipping that heel in. It can tilt, and it can pivot. I don't know if that really matters what word I'm using. And then, due to the transformation, there is a boot cut of sorts up here. So if you want to have some foot swivel, you can sort of do that if you want the foot swivel to be below the knee joint as opposed to the thigh swivel above the knee joint. Pretty solid articulation, all things considered. This is just one of them does all the basics you expect and doesn't really wow you. There's no ab crunch, there's no high-end chemical attack feeling kind of posability. He's a very basic boy. Oh, also his wrists, they turn and then they wiggle on a hinge, and then they can't turn all the way because they slap into this thing. I meant to mention this. I thought this was going to irritate me a whole lot more, but I haven't run into a situation where it's been critically preventing me from doing something I want it to do, so I don't know. Be aware of that, though. There's a limitation, and I'm kind of surprised there's a limitation, given that there's also, like, a hinge. Like, I feel like if there's a hinge here, surely one could have had this just hinge forward to get out of the way, but the hinge is not placed there. The hinge police are coming. You can hear them in the background, and we'll just cut away from their intervention as we go to the head. So the head can do something, and oh boy, it's gonna mess up the jump cut. Oh well, because now I got the head. The head is like one of them little head transformers. He's gonna do precisely what you expect him to do now, which is that. And there's also some little, there's some tabulature here going on the bottom of the forearms. That's sort of neat to lock the head mode together. Unfortunately, this thing doesn't do anything. Like, I feel like we're entering an era where these just don't go away, and I don't know how I feel about that era. As for articulation on this little dude, the head does not move. I gave it a shot. However, there is a ball socket shoulder, and it can go up this far, and that's pretty darn cool. It can also swing forward. There's a single elbow joint that bends, not quite 90, but still just enough. Ball-socketed hips that can kick forwards and go out barely. However, they go out just enough to highlight... Oh, by the way, they can also twist a little bit to simulate some thigh swivel. The ankles are ball-socket connected, so his feet can actually twist left and right, and most importantly, they can pivot in a little bit. So if you have him standing as wide as he can stand, his feet are still flat on the ground, and his feet tilt in a way that makes the side of his lower leg armor not scrape. They also can tilt in much farther than he'll ever use them, so congratulations to you, whatever the hell your name was again. It wasn't Alucard, it was Helsing? Wolverine? Something. Anyway, let's get to transforming the rest of this dude, the one fuzzy back there. I've gone all over the mental globe thinking about this transformation, not because it's hard, it's actually quite easy. And at first I rather liked that after spectating the fiddle fests of Fans Toys Coot and Apache, and experiencing firsthand the three nice acts of transformation held together by inhuman, terrible jointed sticks that is Fans Toys Rogue. But that's where I end up coming down on this conversion scheme. It's easy, but that's because its goal is getting to a bat mode that doesn't try to do much beyond look like the jank G1 original. And this transformation has the same designed by computer feel I got from Rogue. There are no smooth or impressive decisions made in this engineering, just cold stuff like hands fold away, this part has a tab, the slot is here, tab goes into slot, you have achieved movement of leg A to backpack position A. I feel no joy or excitement in this process, it's just achieving a goal with basic efficiency. Anyway, I'll spare you more of my griping for now. I mean, we gotta unfurl some little talons, we gotta unfurl some little fingers. Also, the robot mode arms are deceptively tricky to do if you haven't seen how this thing works. You gotta flip some stuff kind of in two directions at the same time, and then there's a little flippity-out peg thing. There's also a tab on the robot's shoulder that goes into a slot on the robot thigh, and after that, you have this lovely head reveal that swaps the neck slot for the bat skull, and then you gotta jam the pilot in there. Jamming the pilot in there can be tricky, because his legs are kinda thick for the amount of volume he has available in his cockpit. Might have to wiggle him a little. Oh, also, I'm putting the bat mode back onto the stand, which is possible, by the way, but I'm doing this because his ball-jointed bat ankles are having trouble holding him upright for my B-roll. Anyway, I said that transformation was achieving a goal with basic efficiency. Well, the goal achieved is this bat mode, which is deafeningly adequate. It looks like Mind Wipe when he is a bat, as one might have remembered from the late 1980s. A big pair of wings on a black and purple block of body mass. The bat head sculpt has some nice lines going on. There's identity in that portrait, and it is rather cute how the animal fingers and toe talons are all jointed in the same style as his bot mode hands, though it also feels like a robot noted that since the bipedal digits are jointed, so too should these be as articulate. It's all so cold. Also, this guy really isn't trying to do much to smooth out or tighten up the bat mode. Like, it is bulbous, fully back-humped and rucksacked. One would immediately say to me, yeah, well, what do you expect from G1 Mind Wipe? And I would shrug and say, I guess this isn't for me. And that's unfortunately about it for this guy. He's extremely adequate. Fun to mess with in robot mode, neither enjoyable nor frustrating to transform, and when you do transform him, it feels like the toy is far too aware of the number of fans, toys, enthusiasts who prefer shelf displays full of robot modes. For a figure that feels designed by a machine and almost cynically self-aware of its common status as an expensive slot filler for MP3PG1TF box tickers, I'm relieved to say that I still really enjoyed the robot mode, and my thought remains that this is one of the better Fans Toys conversion experiences I've had, even though that got tempered hard by my feelings on the figure after first blush. I thought this was fine as a $100 figure, and then I realized I was looking at the wrong price, and this guy's 150 American greenbacks, and unfortunately I need to detect more than a crumb of passion in a piece to find any semblance of bang for my buck at that cost. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus, and I wish you all a blood-succular evening. Oh, wow, blood-succular doesn't get flagged by the Google Docs spell checker. A warm thanks to all you viewers for sticking out my productivity drought, and a gracious and burning thanks to my wonderful supporters on Patreon for that and more. Check it out if you'd like. We have a Discord. I'm trying to be better at keeping Discord on. Does anyone know how to run a Discord? I think I made too many channels.